Hi, I'm Sam, and I'm an OpenSciEd teacher and facilitator. I'm here today to talk to you about Bath Bombs Lesson 6. And when I first taught this lesson, I found that for myself and for my students that this lesson was really difficult. But when I began to make moves to help my students to see that they know this stuff, all I'm doing is asking them questions and taking what they've learned and apply it to something new, they then began to find this lesson really satisfying. So, how did we get here? In the last lesson, lesson 5, we figured out that both density and flammability are properties, and we added those words to our word wall. We figured out that in high concentration, gases that are not flammable will extinguish a flame. We also figured out that gases or liquids that are less dense float upward, and gases or liquids that are more dense sink downward, and we added that idea to our key models ideas. We finally figured out that the gas that could be coming from the bath bomb might be carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and or argon. So in this lesson, we're wondering, how can we take what we know, or how can we explain another phenomenon where gas bubbles appear from combining different substances together? In other words, can we explain elephant toothpaste? Let's take a look at the lesson at a glance to see how will the students answer this question. This is a one-day lesson. It is a putting the pieces together lesson because they're taking what they've learned before and applying it to something new. There's about 20 minutes of prep for this lesson. There are no hands-on investigations, but you do need your computer in order to show the 2 videos of elephant toothpaste, which can either be found on the OpenSciEd website or links in the teacher guide. We begin the lesson by watching 2 videos of elephant toothpaste. The students make noticings about what they see in the video, and then the teacher provides the students with 3 different questions that the students will answer about concepts learned earlier in lessons 2, 3, 4, and 5 of bath bombs, but applying it not to bath bombs this time, but to the elephant toothpaste scenario. After we take our assessments, we then revisit our driving questions board, where we are able to begin to identify questions that we've already answered and questions that we still need to answer. What do we figure out? We figure out that the mass of a partially open system, where potassium iodide and hydrogen peroxide are combined, both decrease because a gas is formed and some of the gas escapes the system. We figure out that the gas produced makes a glowing ember burst into flame and an already burning flame glow brighter. We figure out that flammability data can help us identify the types of gases that aren't being produced in this process. And finally, we plan a new investigation by either testing the melting or freezing point, the density, and or comparing the results of the flammability tests to the results from controls that could help us identify additional substances that aren't being produced in this process. So what are the key moments? Well, I said at the beginning that my students really struggled in order to answer these questions at the beginning. So I found that by tweaking just a little bit, that I could help my students see that what we were doing here was the same thing as what we had done with the bath bombs. In part 2, we start by showing videos of the elephant toothpaste. And when I began to make comments like, wow, did you see that? It helped the students to notice the important parts of the video, like when the gas escapes, when the person is trying to put the stopper on, the reaction that is happening. After the students made their own noticings, I then bring the class together to make a list of observations to ensure that all students can make sense of the same data. Finally, there are 2 versions of this assessment in the folder that you have downloaded from the OpenSciEd website. The first one is more open-ended. The second version is more scaffolded so that all learners can begin to access the test questions. So where do we go from here? Well, we figured out so much. So we want to see if we can summarize our learning and figure out what other questions we might still have by creating a new consensus model to show what we have figured out. What are some more management tips and tricks that I've done in order to help my students see that they already know these things? Well, let's start by considering those individual arguments. Getting 3 questions at one time can be very overwhelming. So I found that by giving my students only one question at a time to answer kind of lowers their affective level. I also ask my students to read over the prompt, and then I have them come to discuss in a science circle before they write. I know that they've gone through the process of making their thinking public in this manner in lessons 2, 3, 4, and 5. So why not continue with that same process that they're already familiar with? Finally, I make a gotta have it checklist with the students for each question. And therefore, the students are defining what the success criteria is, and they know what then is needed in order to be successful on each question. Consider making notebooks, word wall, and all relevant posters available for students to use. What's pictured below, you can see my word wall and what it looks like at this point in the unit, as well as what the key model ideas look like as well. I also provide students multiple ways for students to respond to the assessment. Some students like to write, some students like to type. I also need to consider the accommodations that need to be made. So some of my students need text to speech or speech to text accommodations, and that can be done by using Chromebooks or any online device that you have. Another modification I provide for all students is to provide sentence stems. Possible sentence stems could be pulled from the scaffolded version of the assessment. Grading. If you're like me and you're looking at this, you mean you want me to grade 3 constructed responses from all of my 200 students? There's no way I have enough time to do this. So something you might want to consider is to probably choose only one question to grade. And you could choose that one question, or maybe you have the students choose the one question. In the example seen below, I allowed my students to tell me which one they thought they did the best work on. And some students chose question 1 while others chose question 2. Finally, I also use asset-based rubrics to give students feedback and then allow for revision. In both assessments pictured below, you can see where the revisions are made because I ask the students to do revisions in a different color. That allows me as the teacher to very quickly see what they've added and to see if their thinking has changed and how much their thinking has changed, and it also allows me then to grade assessments more easily. I want to thank you for watching this video. And, if anything sticks with you or resonates with you, the one thing that I hope you're taking away is that this transfer test, they're hard. They're hard for us as teachers. They're hard for the students. And I think just acknowledging that is our first step. Our next step then is how are we helping the kids to see this as an obstacle that we can overcome together? I hope that you've taken a lot away from this video, and I hope to see you in lesson 7.